I'm going to give you some good ideas with edges, like how to make a really, really hard edge. And it's all in my book, The Art Instruction Course. It's a chapter in that book, and you can get it on Amazon. Soft edges are common in landscapes and less common in other types of paintings, and they suggest that the object is fragile, distant, round, in fog, or in motion. And soft edges can vary greatly in width. Here we have atmospheric perspective, and one of the components of that is edge control. So we see very soft edges on the clouds, harder edges for this mountain, and even harder edges in the foreground. This area is infused with light, so light diffracts around these trees, making them thin with little color or detail, little value contrast, and the edges are very soft. Now, if this edge were interrupted or softened so much that we get a passage, what that means is that this area and this area are connected together by an area that has similar value and color. We have passages here, and I want to show you that up here. So if you want a passage on the horizon, this would be, let me get a different color. This would be the part of the horizon that you would see, and the passage would be directly below the sun, as if it's burning through that horizon. I'm sure all of you know how to make soft edges, but just to talk about general categories. You can mix them when they're wet so they intermingle. You can start with two similar colors and then put in an intermediate color. And it's good to have contrast. Look at the difference between these two. I mean, this last one is more interesting. You feel like there's some depth between this blue line and the green behind it. It looks like this blue line is in front. So, and then you have contrast, and whenever you have a sharp edge, it makes a soft edge look even softer. Hard edges are defined and precise. They attract attention, they make an area advance in space, and there are various degrees of hardness. So metal would be harder than wood. Now these planes look like they have the same edges, same amount of hardness to the edges. So they look like they're on one plane. Now, one thing you can do if you can't see edges very well is to squint. And let's squint and look at this piece wood and this wood. And even when you squint, you see the cracks in the wood in this first one, but you don't see the cracks in the second. So you would be able to tell how hard and how much contrast there is in a crack or an edge by seeing whether it goes away when you squint. Hard edges can be accentuated using linear accents, but the effect has to be fairly subtle so the viewer doesn't immediately notice the accent. Here is one between the two gray squares, and it's intermittent and provides a bit of hardness to this edge. I added a color accent here, which softens the edge and makes it brighter. And then double accents are very effective. You have a black line here, and right next to it is a white line, and then you gradate away very quickly and then stop the gradation so the rest of this looks flat, and you don't really notice the accent. And see how much more pronounced this edge is compared to all the other edges. Let's look at these images with receding planes. So in this first one, I drew the bridge with hard edges and the trees with medium edges and the buildings with soft edges. And I think you can agree that this shows depth. Now, this is a picture I took in Egypt, and there's very little atmospheric perspective here because it's so dry. And you can see that this platform, the Sphinx, and the pyramid, which are really quite far apart, look like they're on top of each other because their edges are all fairly sharp. So if we wanted to make this pyramid look like it is further away, one thing we have to do is soften the edges. With atmospheric perspective, the edges should be relatively sharp in the foreground. This is less sharp, and then this is very soft. But atmospheric perspective is also accompanied by these other changes. So you should see more blues and violets in the background, and you lose orange and yellows, which are the complements to blue and violet. So orange and yellow should only be in the foreground. You lose detail, the value and color contrasts are reduced, and color saturation is also reduced. You can see this is pretty bright, and this is a dull blue. Edges on trees are particularly difficult because foliage is inherently soft-edged, and the closest part of the tree is in the middle. This picture has convincing masses of leaves, but it doesn't look three-dimensional. So in my Photoshop version here, I softened the edges around the tree and gave the foliage in front more of a saturated color. In other words, I used all the aspects of atmospheric perspective here to make the tree look three-dimensional. That means more color saturation in the front and more bluing on the sides, more value contrasts in the front than on the sides. And I also gave the tree some sky holes so the tree doesn't look like a solid mass, but rather made up of light feathery leaves. You need to vary your edges in a painting, so let's see if I did that with Maddie the cat. First, start by blurring your vision. Which edges do you see? I see the hardest edges that separate the white bag from the dark cat, so we mainly see that due to value contrasts. Then there are fairly hard edges, like these seams. Now make your vision a little less blurry, and now you can see the eyes and nose of the cat, which have relatively hard edges. Open your eyes now so you can see the soft, pliable edges of the folds in the bag, and you can also see some softening when her paw goes from dark to light. This is called the terminator that divides light from dark. And this line isn't as sharp as the shadow from the bag cast onto the cat. So shadows tend to be sharper than the line between the light and the dark. There's also edges lost here where her fur and the darkness of the bag meet, linking them or unifying them together. And then finally, edges soften as the vignette fades. I just want to remind you about my book. The link to it is in the comments section. And please remember to subscribe.